What is up, YouTube tool tubers of the world? My name is Brad. Welcome to the lathe. We have another turning video. I told you I'd be bringing some turning to the channel, and we're going to start with this piece of Bodark, aka Osage Orange. Now this is a log, or a piece of a log, that I found in the back of a lady's yard in Midland, Texas. She was just giving it away. I didn't even know what it was at the time until I started cutting into it. It was challenging, it was dry and rock hard, and well, let's just see what happens as we go. So I forgot to mention this is only the second bowl I've ever turned, so y'all be easy on me. I know I don't have a huge wood turning audience, so y'all might not even know when I do screw up. But there were plenty along the way, and we're going to see our first one here at the beginning. See, this is a Harbor Freight lathe, and one of the features is a rotatable headstock, so it just clamps onto the bed basically. So when I turned it up to 750 RPM, this happened. Yeah, it's not supposed to do that there. But anyway, so the clamps that held it to the bed came loose, which I didn't know at the time. That's kind of why I freaked out. But I spared y'all probably the hour it took me to take the headstock off, figure out that it was just the clamps that messed up. Anyways, I got it back on, and here's where we start. I'm starting out roughing out this live edge bowl from this Bodark log, and it's going well with the bowl gouge here. You know, I really prefer the traditional tools over the carbide tools. They just give you a better cut, not as much dust in the air to be breathing in. But as soon as I got past the sapwood of this Bodark log, my tool just started going dull after like 5 minutes of cutting. I could barely cut with it. I wasn't going to sharpen every 5 minutes. So I did switch over to the carbide, which really shine with harder wood. Some of the old cedar fence posts I turn, them things are hard as a rock, and the carbide just cuts right through it. I do sharpen my carbide on a diamond stone, and they work like a dream on really hard materials. I've heard they're good in resin, which I'm going to be adding some resin work soon, so that should be pretty exciting coming to the channel. But with this log here, I suffered from not knowing exactly what I was going to do with it. I figured I'd start turning it. As you can see, I finally got the corners taken off of it, starting to resemble a round object. Very punky on the sapwood, I found out, and punky means just soft, almost rotten wood. So as I was saying, I really didn't have a clear concept of what I wanted this bowl to be. I just knew I wanted it to be bowl shaped somehow. And usually I let the features of the wood dictate what it's going to be. You know, I draw inspiration from other people. A new great channel, he's still small right now, Will Makes Everything. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to his channel in the description below, because he's somebody that I draw a lot of inspiration from. I know a lot of you guys have told me that, you know, you've come to my channel, I kind of dabbled you into this craft, and now you're watching a lot of other makers and wood turners out there. So if you want to see somebody that really knows what they're doing, check his channel out. So here's just a little progress check. You see, I'm almost there, but I still got some bark, so I got to take some more material off. I was also pretty concerned with a pretty large crack, which you'll see as I get more material off. The crack comes further and further down the side of the bowl. But here I'm trying to kind of undercut the wings. I thought it would look cool, but once I actually got it, I really didn't like it. Just something about it didn't look right to me. So I did kind of end up deciding just to ditch that plan and go to more of a V shape. As you can see, I'm starting to carve out here, and it's a simple shape, but sometimes when you're dealing with some of these beautiful pieces of wood, all you need is a nice simple shape. As you can see, I'm trying to take out the undercut here and get more of a natural flow to the bowl. So once I got the top half kind of looking how I wanted it, went in and started working on the base. It was just too tall of a piece to leave with a round bottom, like a cereal bowl or something like that. So what I ended up doing was coming back up to the top, kind of hitting an angle I liked, and then when I hit a base I liked, I just kind of left it, and it left a nice little angle. Now check out this 1 in a million shot here, that one of the shavings lands perfectly on the camera lens. And here you can see that pesky crack that I'm having to deal with, and I'm already starting to think about what I'm going to do with it, because it's worrying me when I go to hollow it's going to become a problem. Now I'm just putting kind of the final touches on the shape that I want, and I was attempting a few light scraping passes basically to try to get some of the tear out and final finish a little bit better before I have to start sanding. You get to see the shape that's kind of evolved itself right now, and I'm pretty happy with it. Again, that big crack, I know I'm gonna have to do something with it. But first I gotta clean out all the dirt and debris that's been collecting in that crack over the years, just sitting in that backyard. So at this point, I've decided I am gonna fill it with epoxy. It's just a safer bet, but it's a very odd shape to try to fill. So I just decided to tape up the entire crack except for a little hole. I did 2 pours, one as kind of a test to see if it would work, and then the second one all the way up to the top of the hole, as you can see here. And I gotta say, it worked surprisingly well. Now, I apologize for not filming. As I develop my skills, as I grow more confident, I'll get these things on camera, but this was a total experiment for me. I needed to really concentrate on what I was doing. I also added some super glue to some small cracks and some of the punky areas. So next I'm just going to take a very light cut, try to level off that epoxy, and try to get rid of some of them super glue marks, because trying to sand them off takes forever. Much better to cut than sand. But of course sanding is inevitable, especially with carbide tools. They just don't cut, they don't leave as good of a finish as the traditional tools, which is why I want to get better with the bowl gouge. So I just worked my way up through the grits up to about 800, and boom, a bowl is finished. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't show the finishing of the outside, but later when I get done hollowing the inside, I show you exactly what I used to get this look. I also went ahead and burnt the top of the bowl. I just wasn't happy with the way the bark looked. I mean, this log had been sitting outside, the sun had faded the bark. It just did not look good. So I start off my hollowing process the easy way, with like a 2-inch Forstner bit, slowly drive it in there to the depth I want, and that gives me a nice good start. I don't have to worry about turning that slow wood that's in the center. Now here I'm trying a technique I saw Al Furtado, the Rebel Turner, another great channel by the way. He recommends defining your rim on a natural edge bowl with a parting tool. That way you're not putting any scraping pressure basically against the bark. It helps to save the bark. Now I couldn't quite do what he does. He's a lot more experienced, and that parting tool is getting a little too deep in there, even with me making relief cuts, for me to feel comfortable. And although this wood is very, very hard wood, as I've said many times already, hollowing with these carbide tools is a pretty simple process when you have a simple shape like I do. Now I'm sure it gets a lot more complicated the more you delve into this craft, but all I'm doing is following the contour of the outside, taking as deep, as heavy as a cut as I feel comfortable with it in that chuck. And really, the hollowing went pretty smoothly. I had my dust collector on. You can see a lot of them chips flew right into the dust collector, which was pretty nice. And slowly and surely I got to the depth I wanted. I think I stopped about 3/4 of an inch above where that base was defined, because for one, I wanted a nice heavy base. You don't have to worry about this bowl tipping over. And two, I didn't want a super narrow bottom, because if you throw your keys or some pocket change or whatever you decide to chunk in this bowl, I didn't want you to have to reach super deep down and having to struggle to scrape something out of the bottom of it. So I wanted that nice curve. Here I'm just putting some thin CA glue all around the rim or anywhere I think might need a little sturdiness, a little shoring up before I do my final passes. Which is what I'm doing right here, just some nice light passes, trying to get as good of a finish I can get before I head into sanding. And what wood turning video isn't complete without getting interrupted by a baby monitor. Next I go ahead and touch up that burnt rim look again, either pieces of bark that came off or maybe an inadvertent touch of the rim with a chisel. It happens, you know. Either way, it's fixable, everything's fixable. And you can see how much better I think it looks with that burnt rim, as long as you don't catch your bowl on fire, which I almost did. But I really think it just gives the bowl a much cleaner look. Next up, a little sanding montage for you. Again, just like the outside, I went from 100 grit to 800 grit, working my way up. I tried to do a lot of it by hand, that's just kind of the way I prefer, but with those wings on the outside, even with the sandpaper wrapped in a sponge, it just kind of beat me up too much. So I tried doing it by hand. In the end, I decided just keeping the lathe off and using a drill was really what was working best. And then I wiped down the whole thing with denatured alcohol just to get all the dust off of the inside before I actually start applying my finish. Now this is exactly how I did the outside. I started out with 2 coats of sanding sealer, giving it a little bit of time in between to dry, which is about 20 minutes or so, and then I come back with a Scotch-Brite pad and denib it, I guess you could say. It kind of raises the grain is what I'm used to hearing it called. And the Scotch-Brite pad just kind of smooths it all out, lays it back down. Next, I give it a coat of Tung Oil that I thinned down with mineral spirits. It's a 2-to-1 mix, nice and thin to really soak up in that grain. Then I kind of sand it some more with the Tung Oil still wet, just to kind of give it some more smoothness. I'm still experimenting a lot with my finishes, so this is by no means instructional. This is just what I did to this bowl. And then of course I also hit the rim of the bowl with some of the still wool as well. Now I let that sit overnight to kind of let the Tung Oil cure, although I know it takes a lot longer than that for Tung Oil to cure. And right here I'm hitting it with a homemade shine juice, but rather than bull linseed oil, I use Tung Oil. I also apply the shine juice with a 3M finishing pad. Now this is like a super fine Scotch pad, and I think it helps build up that friction inside of a bowl, which I had trouble doing. But after I was finished with all that, it's time to turn it around and get that tenon taken off the back. Now I was also pretty nervous about this because I had never done this before. The only other bowl I used had a mortise, which I just left the mortise in it. You know, it was a small bowl, it wasn't a big deal. But I decided to use the Phil Anderson technique, where you turn your lathe down nice and slow, and you just cut it off, and you turn it off right when it breaks loose. So here I am cutting. I don't think it's going to break off anytime soon. There's still a good 3/4 inch nub on there, but all of a sudden, all hell just breaks loose, and that bowl just went flying, and expletives came flying out of my mouth just as quick. So here I'm just sanding off the bottom, trying to make that little nub go away. And those sanding sticks are amazing, as you just saw. Helps really unclog your sandpaper, but I get the nub off, and we have a completed bowl. Well, there she is, my second bowl I've ever made. Before this, the only thing I really ever hollowed out, a little walnut bowl that was about half the size of it. So I guess I'm just gradually progressing my way up. But this was Osage Orange. We call it Bodark here in Texas. It's extremely hard wood. I actually got a couple big logs of this out of a lady's backyard in Midland. It is checked, it's cracked, but I like that. I'm still learning, you know. I think it would have looked better to keep it all natural, but I don't think it looks bad like this. As much of a struggle as it was, it's just a beautiful, beautiful wood, and I hope it shows up on camera. Let me know what you think about the turning videos. Big, huge shout out to a couple experienced wood turners. Pole Barn Productions helped me out a lot, you know, getting through problems with this. Rex Krueger over there has got a great channel, and a smaller channel, but the dude just does exquisite work, is Will Makes Everything. I'll leave a link to all three channels in the description. They don't really need my help. They're doing fine on their own. But if you like this sort of thing, you go see some people that can really do it well. Appreciate you coming along. I will have more turning projects as I get to them. You know, I don't like to film everything. If you like to see all of my projects, you got to go over to my Instagram. I definitely shoot up more pictures of different things I'm working on than making full-length videos like this. Until next time, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll holler at y'all next time. Peace! Fuck! Motherfucker! You weren't supposed to break off.